I'm Joshua Adams, and this is the Industry Insights Podcast, where I am joined in the Rock Paper Simple studio by community leaders as we dive into industry topics and perspectives. Thanks for joining us today. I have Chris Conneen with Higher Purpose Restaurant Group. You may recognize that as Pizza Gallery, 28 North, etc. Thanks for joining us, Chris. I'm very excited about chatting about the great game of business today.
All right. So am I, Joshua.
Awesome. So this is something, it's a concept, it's a book. It's a concept for how you run your business, especially how you create a communication with the team on what the numbers are, how you win the game as business, if you will. This is something we're starting. We're just beginning at our organization. We've been talking about it for a couple of years, honestly, and we're just about to roll it out. We've just started some of the open book concepts, which is very interesting. But this is something you've been doing for more than a decade at this point. So you have a lot of insight on this, and it seems like you're pretty passionate about it.
Very. I mean, who doesn't like playing games?
Right.
I know you guys at RPS love playing games, and the great game of business is, it's a book I came across, but it's more of a way of doing business and comparing it to games.
Excellent. So let's start with what drew you to it. Why did you even begin exploring it? You mentioned you discovered the book, and this was 2010, 2011-ish, right?
Correct.
So what drew you to it? Why did you begin this process?
Went to a pizza executive summit in Chicago in 2010 and saw a speaker there, Nick Cirillo, with Nick's Pizza out of Chicago. And he just talked a super successful speaking engagement and was very impressed with what he had done, what he had accomplished, and met with him afterwards and asked him, tell me his secrets, what can I learn from you? And he's like, well, here's a book. And he gave me The Great Game of Business. And I was like, okay, I'm not a big reader, but went into reading that book by Jack Stack and got really intrigued. Went to Springfield, Missouri, spent a weekend up there and did a 2.5-day kind of training class, so to speak, and dove in after that.
Nice. I think one of the things that is most attractive to me when I look at it now, I love games, right? I'm an avid board gamer. I have more board games in my collection than I want to admit on this podcast. But so that concept, understanding the rules, really appeals to me. I know a lot of my team does. We have a break room that's stocked with board games. And so there's this idea of understanding the rules around the game. But I'd love to hear you describe it, right? What is it for those that are listening, that are like, I don't even, what is this great game of business thing? Let's start with that. At the highest level, how would you describe it?
At the highest level, wow. I'm more of the...
Okay, at the high-ish level?
Yeah. Honestly, it's three things. It's know and teach the rules, follow the action and keep score, and provide a stake in the outcome. That's the highest level. Then you got to get down into it. And for somebody who has over 100 employees and in the hospitality industry, food and beverage industry, not all of them understand business. As entrepreneurs, I think most all entrepreneurs are competitive nature, obviously. And, we want to compete, which games are competitive. It usually takes some team effort. It takes communication. It takes training. It takes strategy. It takes practice. It takes all of that stuff, games and winning and losing, all those things come into play. Well, all those things come into play with business too. So there's all those game analogies that apply to business exactly. And we got our team highly involved in 2011. And it was super exciting for me and a few of the leaders because we saw the potential, but not really exciting for the employees. They weren't really interested. They just wanted to come to work and make money and go home. But in order to do that, the business needs to make money. And the business will only make money if the employees are helping generate that direction and that goal.
I think one of the things that's most interesting about understanding this concept is the initial disconnect of the typical workforce with what really matters in a business. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I really believe that none of our employees that were in the trenches, we call them team members now. There's a whole shift in cultural language and that comes with playing the game and building that culture. but there really wasn't a mindset that had anything to do with profitability. It was just come to work and check the box and make my money and go home, not understanding that the business has to generate cash. So one of the questions I ask in orientation is, what's the number one objective of every restaurant? And, generating cash is not even on their mind. It's make the customer happy. Make sure the customer leaves happy. Make sure the customer's telling everybody else about the place. So we want to really make sure the guests are happy and have a great experience. We can do that and go out of business. We can do that and spend too much money on labor and food costs and all those things. And every customer is going to be the happiest customer in the world leaving our place. And they're going to tell everybody about us, but we're going to be going out of business because we're doing it at a negative, liable bottom line.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I discovered is, we're just at the stage where we started doing open book the last few months, which is a big part of the great game of business. And I'd really like to hear your side of that. But we just started doing it where we pull the P&L up, right? And we go through it and we talk about different parts of it. And it's been really interesting to do. The questions have been awesome. Being able to share why this number matters. What numbers do we have control over? Asking the team, hey, what do you have control over on this list, on this P&L? And one thing that's been really fun is about every week, every other week, we'll pick a topic and we'll just dig a little deeper. Like, what does this line item mean? Like, let's talk about payroll taxes, right? Let's talk about taxes in general. Let's talk about profit and loss. Let's talk about what it means to what it does to the bottom line to lose a client, to gain a client, right? What happens? What's margin? Right? Why does it matter? And so it's been really wild having that conversation as we set the stage when we're going to roll this out next year and tie things to that. So what have you discovered as you begin to embrace the open book piece? I'm going to say begin, as you've been doing it for the last decade plus. What does that look like? What have been the advantages of it? What are the pitfalls? I mean, obviously, it's something that I've heard a lot of stress around sharing your books, opening up your books to your team. And there's some fear associated with that. But you and I have talked about how that almost doesn't make sense. So I'd really love to hear your perspective on that.
Well, first, the response I get is, what is a P&L? From my team members, like, P&L, what's that?
Right.
So obviously a P&L is like one of the number one scoreboards to any business, trying to make a profit, profit and loss. And the reality is, we have a management team that most food and beverage industry, we're talking industry insights here. So I would venture to say that most all restaurants managers are aware of P&L numbers. They're aware of sales, labor cost, food cost, maybe not so much on occupancy and those kinds of things, because those are for the owner to work out and negotiate with the landlord, or mortgage. They probably don't even know that. But food costs and labor costs, I would hope that every single manager knows that. But the employee who's driving that number doesn't know the number, doesn't know the goal. So if you don't know the goal and you're on a football team, we're in football season right now, and you don't know which goal your team is even going towards, you don't even know the play, you don't know what position you play on the team, then we're really shooting ourselves in the foot as a company when 80% of our team, 90% of our team, 90 of our employees are team members, where 10 of them are leaders. The 10 leaders know the goals. They know what direction we're going in. They know critical numbers. They know P&L. They know margins. They know all that. But 90 of our team members don't have a clue. It kind of makes it hard for the team to be going in the same direction.
Yeah, and I think there's some staggering numbers there. You quoted a little bit of it, but I think the poll was 37% of team members in an organization know their goals, what they're trying to accomplish. And you put this in perspective for me when we were talking. You're like, imagine you're a football team with 11 players on the field, and 4 of them know which goal we're scoring. That's terrifying, right? And you need to realize a lot of us run our business that way. We're really good with job descriptions. We're really good with an org chart. Hey, this is what your job is day to day, the tasks you're doing. But we're literally almost never in there are we giving them a number that they're responsible for, or numbers with which to score the company is doing well. I think you had the number also said 2 out of those 11 would know their position. meaning how do they affect the scoreboard? How do they help us score, right? At the end of the day, what are the numbers that affect the business viability, stability, all of those things?
That's right. And think about it in a competitive arena, right? Where in football, you got an offense and a defense. Well, in our arena, you have another marketing company. I have dozens of other restaurants in my neighborhood to compete against. So if I'm on a team of 11 and only 2 of my team members know what the goal is and what direction we're going in, and the other team has 11 people that know what direction they're going in, we're going to get pummeled.
Right.
We're going to get pummeled. And we want to have as many people involved in the process. We want to have them aware of the process, goals, driving forces, drivers, so to speak. In the industry I'm in, it's mostly food and labor costs. Those are the 2 most controllable things in the food industry. And those are what they have a lot of control over. But if they don't know what that means and little games we can play to move that little needle that moves the bigger needle, which we call margin or profit. Profit seems to be like a 4-letter word to some people, and it's not. It really is it's a good thing, not just capitalistic, greedy thing. It's the number one objective for our business is to make money. And it's not a greedy thing. It's to keep doing what we do.
I think it's easy for us to say, hey, you're going to get, if the business does well, you'll do well, right? If the business thrives, so will the employees or the team. And people have heard that before, right? And it's easier to dismiss that than if you say, hey, with Great Game Business, this concept of having a stake in the outcome, right? And actually quantifying that, having numbers, having goals, having things to set that is very, very powerful. And I'm excited about that. So what have you observed with that in terms of how the teams reacted to that? What are some highlights of implementing that?
Have you ever heard the acronym WIFM?
I have.
What does it stand for?
I don't remember.
What's in it for me? WIFM, what's in it for me? I think a lot of people, Americans especially, what's in it for me, right?
Right.
And from a management place, a higher level team member employee, I think for the most part, there's some form of bonus program, profit sharing, but not at a team member level. So like you were saying, we cheerlead this altruistic team, if we do well, you'll do well kind of thing. And they're like, yeah, right, whatever. You're driving the fancy car and living in the big house and I'm working for minimum wage. But for real, what's in it for our team members? What is their stake in the outcome? And again, we'll throw that out there in orientation from a food and beverage industry employee. What's in it for them if the restaurant succeeds? Job security. Is that a good thing? Does that feel good when my job is secure? Heck yeah. Growth, learning, relationships, promotions, raises, more financial income opportunities. There's all kinds of tangible and intangible benefits to a company staying in business and being successful. So those are some of the stakes that they have, the outcomes, not just bonus plans. There's not a bonus plan set up for our dishwasher, or our, food runner or for our host, but there is job security and promotional opportunities and growth and learning and cultural, relational stuff that they definitely benefit from.
So, one of the things you mentioned earlier was this idea of getting everyone going in the same direction, right? Now, helping everybody understand these are our goals. This is where we're going. And I think one of the statements, one of the rules or the laws, if you will, from the book is you can stop one person. It's really hard to stop 100, right? And in your case, you have those numbers. How do you feel that applies?
It's pretty fundamental. It's like the higher laws that state. Even 10 of our managers, they're more easily stopped than 100 team members. It's momentum. It's the flywheel effect, that cultural wheel that's so big and so heavy that you and I as founders or owners, We try to move that thing. It's impossible. It's heavy and it's hard. But if we get a few of our management and leaders behind us and we're all going in the same direction, now it's a little bit easier. You get 90 employees on that wheel, all moving it in the same direction. Owners can just sit back and watch the wheel go, and managers can even sit back and watch the wheel go. And at one point, the team members can even stand back and watch centrifugal force take over the flywheel effect, because that's what happens when culture really starts to move together. There's a tipping point, and another book out there, that it took a lot of momentum. It took a lot of energy to get us going. It took 3 to 4 years to implement this great game of business philosophy. We lost a lot of good people. Change was not easy. But when we finally reached that tipping point was when the flywheel just kind of grew that momentum of, wow, this is easy. This is good. This is, it not only feels good, the results are even better.
So we've talked a lot about the concept, why we do it, how it gets everybody kind of aligned and rowing in the same direction. But fundamentally, the great game business is about numbers, and it's about the games we play around them, right? So could you give me some examples of the different kinds of numbers you might work with and also the different kinds of games that you play?
Yeah, the critical number is the number one number that we want everybody to be aware of and going towards the goal. The critical number is usually our greatest asset, be it a sale, the number of sales or something, or it's a vulnerability, that we need to be aware of and take care of that. Then there are hundreds of small mini games, so to speak, that you can play to drive smaller numbers that impact the bigger number goal. One fun little game that we play in orientation is called the paper cheetah. Have you ever played the paper cheetah?
I have not.
It's because I made it up. It's a made up game, but you probably have all your employees fill out some form of paperwork for their HR file here, W-4s, I-9s, medical questionnaires, all that paperwork stuff. So there's about 10 pieces of paper in our employee folder, team member folder. And for one team member to fill that out, it took about 33 minutes on average. And this is a 16-year-old employee who's never filled it out, doesn't know what a W-4 is, or a 30-year-old who's filled out 100 W-4s. So on average, it took 33 minutes. When we implement a game that has 3 simple rules, we increased the performance and outcome that what used to take 33 minutes, now the average is 13 minutes. And the world record paper cheetah holder did it in less than 7 minutes. The same paperwork. 3 simple rules. When you're done, yell paper cheetah. It has to be 100% legible and 100% complete. So there's the rules. Say paper cheetah when you're done, 100% legible and 100% complete. So we have an efficient and effective 3-rule process, fun. It becomes competitive. You should see them get all like warmed up and stretching their hands and getting their pen ready. And some of them even starting to fill it out. Whoa, I didn't say start yet. So they've got their rules, 3 rules. Their scoreboard is just a simple stopwatch, ready, set, go. And then the rewards is, a trip to the prize box, got some cash and prizes in there. If you break the world record paper cheetah time, then you get a large pizza and a little trip to the prize box again as well. So we've increased efficiency by 300%. You went from the time it took was 33 minutes down to less than 10 minutes. Think about the efficiency in this one game and think about the effectiveness because it's 100% accurate and legible. I mean, the results are amazing. And you can do that with anything. Do that with food cost. Do that with labor cost. Do that with accuracy. Do that with cleanliness. Do that with anything in the industry that we're in, or do it with something that's in your industry. Play a game, have fun with it, be competitive in it. And what I noticed and what you'll notice if you watch any sports game is before the scoreboard lights up and the teams are on the field, what are they doing?
They're stretching, they're preparing, they're getting ready, they're passing the ball around.
Yeah, but they're not playing the game. So when the scoreboard lights up, what changes?
Interesting.
Everything
Interesting.
changes when the scoreboard lights up and the clock, whether we're playing football and it's a 15-minute quarter, as soon as that clock starts, everything changes. Intensity, focus, strategy, just everything changes when that scoreboard lights up. And I think that's where a lot of businesses miss is they don't keep score. They don't pay attention. There's not a scoreboard anywhere for the team to know if they're winning or losing or if they're even in a game. Maybe they're just passing the ball around or stretching or scrimmaging, but they're not really in a game until the scoreboard's lit up. Then it becomes competitive and you have a winner and a loser. And while I don't like to lose, I do learn from it on how to get better and win the next time.
I think, frankly, losing is one of our best teachers, right? I've often said that I'm not afraid of losing, if you will, learning, making a mistake. And I think that's one of the great ways to get to succeeding or winning is you get a couple losses and you go, okay, what did I learn? What did I do wrong? I love the quote, success is a big pile of failure that you're standing on, right? And I feel like that could be really, really true. And I experienced that over my life. And I think encouraging the team to say, hey, this is the goal we're going for. It's okay to have some drop balls and some missed passes, but we know that, okay, next time we're focusing on being more efficient. We're focusing on working towards that first down, towards that goal, if you will.
Yeah, if you're paying attention, if you are keeping track of the performance, if you're tracking things and keeping score, then you are paying attention, especially to those details that do matter, the small things that help move the ball forward. I know thousands of more ways not to do things than I do the right way to do things. But those painful losses stick with me, and I try not to make the same mistakes twice, and that helps me win more games.
So how do you guys go about? Obviously, you've got the big numbers, right? You've got food costs, you've got labor costs, you've got margin at the end of the day, and that those are the big numbers, right? But as you're doing the little numbers, and obviously you've got the main game where we're keeping score of the big numbers and making sure everybody understands that. But how did you come to the conclusion on doing the mini games, right? How do you come up with those? How do you come up with, okay, we have this number we want the team to care about. How do you go about creating a game around it?
Well, P&L will expose any vulnerabilities, and then you just put a game around the vulnerabilities. If it's a food cost issue, a bar beverage cost issue, or a labor cost issue, again, those most controllable things in our industry, those are the top three. And whichever one is got the biggest variance in the wrong direction, just create a game around it. Culturally, we use a lot of that language associated with games. We have a press box in the restaurant, and that's where all the information comes out of from the press box. That's where your stats and numbers and the P&L sits in that press box up on the wall for everybody to see. There are the real numbers, the one set of numbers. There's no second set of books in the office for the managers. This is the only set of books, and it is updated every week. I think the other thing that we haven't talked about is in the great game of business, it is about 80% forward thinking, 20% looking in the rearview mirror. I think a lot of independent restaurateurs just track what happened last week, and they just keep tracking what happened last month, what happened last quarter, what happened last year, instead of looking 80% into the future going, this is what's going to happen. How can I predict the future? With 30 years behind me, I have a lot of predictable future because we, go through the same kind of seasonalities, and I have a ton of data to say, this is exactly what we're going to do this week, pretty much to the T with a small bit of variance. But forecasting and forward thinking is really probably one of the biggest changes that I made when I learned more about the great game of business, because I was just tracking everything that happened performance-wise and then trying to react to that, instead of looking at this week and this month and this quarter ahead of me and acting on it. I was more reacting. So huge shift in forward thinking and forecasting, and that has made a major difference. And that is in a press box for everybody to see. We have huddles on a daily basis. We have manager huddles on a weekly basis. Everything that comes out of that manager's meeting goes up onto the press box board and the P&L board, the communication board. And we disseminate a lot of information in the leaders' meetings, but the key indicators go right onto that board.
So for those that are looking to maybe start the great gaming business, or for those of us that are just starting, what are some results you've seen in your business?
I think the biggest result is peace of mind. When you have a team that is aligned a little bit more, there's a little bit more peace of mind. When you have a team that's a lot more aligned, there's even more peace of mind. So that's probably the number one biggest result. And first couple years into it again was an uphill push, a lot of energy and put into it. When we started to get better at it, created some critical numbers. One of our biggest vulnerabilities was debt. We were in debt for, some 20 years of business up until then. Constant growth and, go all in and, get bigger and produce some more debt. So we set a goal to knock out that debt in a year, 100%, 6 figures, a little bit more. And within 13 months, we accomplished that as a team. So we've been debt-free 100% since then. That was 12 years ago. So think about that in a frame of peace of mind, not to have, debt in your company. That was huge. But the accomplishments, when you win, it just feels really good. There's momentum behind that. And the peace of mind that comes with it is priceless.
Well, I think I've learned a lot, and I'm excited about where we're going with this. But what really appeals to me around it is obviously the peace of mind, that aspect of saying, hey, there's not just a couple of us that know the score, a couple of us that are rowing in the same direction. One of the reasons that I started the business, right, and I had a lot of options, paths to go 10, 11 years ago. There were 3 reasons, and it was I wanted to create a better experience for those that worked in our space. I wanted to create something that made an impact on the community, and I wanted to create something that built well for the team that was working behind it. And it's hard to do in business, right? It's hard to figure out how do you do something that can create opportunities, right? Bigger opportunities for the team and get them to think like owners. And this creates that pathway. This is one of the reasons I'm so excited about it, is being able to say, this is how we score, this is how we win, this is how we all make more money at the end of the day. So I'm very excited about rolling it out. I appreciate you coming and sharing kind of your experience with this and kind of how you've done it. I know that you guys were nominated as one of the best practitioners for Great Gaming Business. And so I really am looking forward to learning more from you on this.
Yeah, anytime, Joshua.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of Industry Insights. If you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe, comment, or even drop us a line over at rockpapersimple.com.